Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Wednesday, January 29th, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeannie Rice on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Rice's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 20 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again, absolutely free. You can also download a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one where people have been stepped through that worksheet process. And if you choose to listen to those even repeatedly, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get maximum benefits from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your App Store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. If you choose to do that, before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives. And secondarily, because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials, and if you have any of those to share with us, we'd appreciate you doing so. The primary way to do that is either through email. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org. or you can email Jeannie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org. And if we get a comment or a question or feedback or testimonial from you, we'll address it on the internet show, and then as time allows, send you a notification about what day and time that occurred so you can listen back to the archives for your feedback or input. The other way to do that is if you're listening to us live through the internet at live.needle.com/mindshiftersradio. We're glad you're here. We're glad you're listening. However, if you want to contribute, either type in a comment or talk directly to us through the phone, you need to download the Needle app from your app store. That's Needle, N-E-D-L, and it's an AI radio tuner. And once you download that app and sign in, it gives you the opportunity to either speak to us directly or type in a comment. And we greatly appreciate whenever anybody does that because it makes it infinitely easier for us to live into our intention with this work. And the intention we have with this work is to be a service, and let us know how we can be of more service. Let us know how these things are landing for you, whether it's our working through worksheets when people call in or discussing the dynamics that allow a worksheet to be a powerful tool in our lives, or, as we've been doing recently, reading with commentary from various authors that we feel are basically giving the same message. And over the years, we've read all of the workbook lessons for the Course in Miracles, and we've read through The Way of Mastery with commentary twice, and we offer the files of me reading The Way of Mastery with and without commentary on the website at mindshiftersacademy.org. And we encourage people to go there and check that out and give us feedback if they're able to access those files. If it's a little bit easier, there are some best of audio files loaded up there. And on the educational materials page, there's access to what I give people in my first session or two, which is the what I call the mental short version of the reality management worksheet. It's the way I introduce people to the process of mapping out what they're doing with their conscious logical mind in the first 3 steps. And then the 4th step, cancel all of that and ask to be shown something else, something more integrated, something more inspirational. And that's available along with the forgiveness pattern in both a PDF form and an audio file of me reciting the forgiveness pattern, which I strongly encourage people to do because it's gotten such wonderful comments and benefits from people. It's part of the forgiveness process, the reality management worksheet process, every time I do one in a support group or on the internet show, and certainly in my own private sessions with people. And it's just a little space for meditation to open me up to the idea that if I cancel what my conscious logical mind is telling me needs to happen and put it aside and ask to be shown something else and cancel my need to be right and cancel my need for anyone or anything else to change, and I step into the realization, as Guy Finley talks about it, that there's no such thing as bad self-knowledge. So it's perfectly safe for me to see and feel and remember whatever kind of traumatic energy I went through in the past, because now if it's coming to my awareness, it's just nerves firing in my brain. It's just an echo of the past, and it can't hurt me any more than it already has. And so the forgiveness pattern combines a number of different aspects of different trauma reduction techniques that I've learned over the years and brings it all into one place. So that's also available on the mindshiftersacademy.org website on the educational materials page. So here we are on a Wednesday, halfway through the week. Let us know how this is landing for you, what we might do that's of benefit to you, how you're feeling about or responding to the reading from the book Being Peace, written by Thich Nhat Hanh. And in lieu of a hand going up or somebody wanting to speak directly to us through the Needle app, I'm going to return to looking for the similarities in the work we've done with Course in Miracles and Way of Mastery and Guy Finley's work and Diedrich Wolzak's work and Christian Sundberg's work in his book, A Walk in the Physical, looking for those similarities. And so the last thing we were reading from Thich Nhat Hanh had to do with how everything is connected to everything. A sheet of paper is made of everything that's non-paper because it comes from the result of the sun hitting the planet, hitting seeds, seeds germinating and growing into plants and being eaten by animals, and trees growing and people eating the vegetation and getting stronger and then cutting the tree down and turning it into paper, etc. Everything is connected. And so the emptiness that they talk about in those teachings is this the paradox of something being empty and full. It's empty in this sense, it's full of everything in the entire cosmos. And the presence of a sheet of paper proves the existence of the whole cosmos when seen from this angle of this perspective of the connection of all things. We have a caller. Julia, you're in the air. Hello, Julia.
Hello, good morning. I'm
Welcome.
calling, thank you. I'm calling to say how much it sounded like when you were reading the book yesterday. It sounded just like the Course in Miracles and also the Way of Mastery. And so I really enjoyed that. And also, I wanted to express gratitude to Susan for sharing her story of her son and how he's doing. And I thought it was just, it really touched my heart to hear her say that, because I've heard her talk about him in the past year and how he was having anxiety and he had left his job, and so I thought it was very courageous of him to leave his job, and I was really happy to hear that he said he was peaceful and calm at worst, and having an exuberant experience being on the boat, and that just really opened my heart, and I'm really grateful that that's happening for him and for Susan. And let's hear something else. Yeah, I was just really moved by that, and her sharing yesterday. So thank you, Susan, and many blessings to you and your family. And that's what I wanted to share today.
All right.
And
Well, it's very appropriate, and thank you for doing that. I know a lot of people uh, feel those things and, for whatever reason, choose not to share them. So thank you for sharing them and letting her know that you find her contributions valuable.
I do very much, and yours too, and much gratitude to you and making this space and sharing with us. It means a lot.
Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. And it's this. We try to do it 5 days a week, 1 hour a day, but it's also the support groups that are offered on Tuesday and Thursday night from 6:30 to 9 Central Time. And I understand that for a lot of people that's a weird time slot and it's difficult to match, but I like to keep reminding people that that's there as a wonderful resource as well.
That's funny that you said that, because like you read my mind, because it is like a weird time slot for me. And then but I always think of it. I think of you and I think of the group, and y'all are always in my heart, and it's always my intention to like come. Oh, I want to come this week. I'm gonna go. And then at that time I'm on the West Coast, so I'm still kind of ending my work day and finishing the day. So, but
Yeah, it's fascinating how we have these time zones that we wrap our lives around, and it's quite the challenge at times, especially doing the On Your Mind podcast with people from Australia and England and Spain and different parts of the U.S. and trying to coordinate those schedules because we're all pretending that we're not awake at the same time. It's not the same time here as it is there.
yep, yep. But with the magic of the internet, there's no time. Like in reality, there's no time. But
Yeah,
now with the internet, there's no time, and I can go back in time, supposedly, and listen and re-listen and to the show at least.
yeah.
Not, yeah. So.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for the comment and being willing to share. Is there anything else we can support you with today?
No, that's all. Thank you very much.
All right. Blessings.
Blessings. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks.
So, unless someone else raises a hand, we'll get back to the reading with commentary. Again, looking for the similarities, and that's why Julia's comment resonates. She said that she is seeing the similarities. I think part of her seeing it is me doing a commentary trying to draw these parallels, and part of it is sometimes it's almost verbatim. The same statements are made from one great spiritual teaching to the next. And yesterday, one of the things I was doing was pointing out how in this work, Thich Nhat Hanh's book, Being Peace, he talks about knowledge, and he's referring to it as intellectual thoughts about something. And in The Way of Mastery, it talks about knowledge not as the intellect, not as your thoughts about something, but rather as the direct, lived, wide open experience of life in the moment. So while there are a lot of similarities, and I think the core message is much the same, there are different ways that these people are using different words, attributing different meanings to them, and it's highly beneficial for me to tease those out with an eye toward looking for the similarities. So back to the book, Being Peace with Thich Nhat Hanh, he talks about how if you can see how a simple piece of paper is connected to everything in the universe, then every individual is connected to everything in the universe. And when you do something that's of benefit to yourself, it benefits everyone. And we kind of wrapped up yesterday with talking about how the way of the Course in Miracles says, when you heal, you are never healed alone. And then another place it says, millions yet unborn will benefit from the work you do here today. So think about what we're called to in the way of mastery, this idea of being very, very self-wise, to use Michael Rice's term. The way of mastery says, very, very divinely selfish. You must be so committed to improving your situation, to seeing the truth of your nature, that you do not tolerate negative thoughts and beliefs, that you dismantle them actively. And Michael Rice, instead of using the word selfish, he says, let's talk about it as being self-wise. This is a wise thing to do for you and everyone you're connected with. Oh, and by the way, you're connected to everyone and everything. And that's just another thing that Han brings up in the book here, Being Peace. And so he talks about something has happened in some meditation centers. A number of young people found themselves ill at ease with society, so they left in order to come to a meditation center. They ignored the reality that they did not come to the meditation center as an individual. Coming together in a meditation center, they form another kind of society. As a society, it has problems like other societies. Before entering the meditation center, they had hoped that they could find peace in meditation. Now, practicing and forming another kind of society, they discover that this society is even more difficult than the larger society. It is composed of alienated people. After some years, they feel frustrated, worse than before ever coming to the meditation center. This is because we misunderstand meditation. We misunderstand the purpose of meditation. Meditation is for everyone and not just for the person who meditates. Bringing children into a meditation center is very natural. In Plum Village, children practice with adults. From time to time, we open the door for guests to come and practice with us and bring their children. We especially take care of the children. When the children are happy, the adults are happy. One day I overheard the children telling each other, how come our parents are so nice here? I have a friend who's been practicing meditation for 14 years, and he has never shown his daughter how to meditate. You cannot meditate alone. You have to do it with your children. If your children are not happy, do not smile. You cannot smile. When you make a peaceful step, that is for you, but it is also for the children and for the world. This reminds me of so many people over the years that I've had interactions with, and Michael Rice talks about this, interacting with people who are avid meditators. They're just, they would never skip a day, and they meditate an hour in the morning, an hour at night, and all these other things, and they swear by their meditation, and yet when they're interacting with other people and somebody says or does something that they don't like, they fly into a rage. So the calmness that they experience in the meditation realm doesn't generalize out to their everyday life. And so that would be what Thich Nhat Hanh is talking about here, is not really meditating. You don't meditate in isolation, and meditation is not about a false sense of okayness. Meditation is about being awake and aware at very different levels, deeper levels, you might say. It reminds me of when Michael Rice was out in Northern California, Oregon, and making a trip up and down the coast, and he ran into the um, the monk who was the second in line behind the Dalai Lama. I think Michael has said he was the keeper of wisdom for that tradition. And when Michael met them and did his Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop, the monk said, "Oh my gosh, I want you to give this again, and I will translate it into their native language. I want my monks to have this tool." And he said, when we lived over in Tibet, we didn't need this. We didn't have the same kind of pressures. We didn't have the societal uh, atmosphere, the environment, this energetic thing was different. We didn't need it. But living over here, we need these tools. And what is the tool? The tool says, look, meditation, you might think of it as watching, allowing, being aware, and focusing on your true nature as love and the miracle of your life, etc. That's one prong of a two-prong approach that's very effective. The other prong of that approach is that I honestly am aware of negativity, tension, judgment as it arises in me, and I actively work to see it to its core and dismantle it. And that's where the reality management worksheet comes in. So I take full responsibility for my negative thoughts, for my thoughts of anger and fear and sadness and hurt and confusion and hatred, and I put them on a worksheet, and I map out what my mind is doing to justify and rationalize those negative thoughts, and then I cancel it all and ask to be shown, what's the deeper trauma in me? What's the deeper understanding I can reach? So meditation is one very useful tool. And as most people have experienced, the biggest challenge with meditation, after you're able to sit calmly, the biggest challenge with it is, now can I translate this awareness of peace, awareness of value, awareness of compassion into my everyday interactions with other people who may not have just finished meditating, and they may not be in a wide open, awake, aware state where they see and value their true nature as a being of brilliance and light. That's where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. That's where the actual value in meditation is is to be lived, is to be seen. That's why Thich Nhat Hanh was famous for walking meditation, not just sitting in some isolated room on a comfy cushion where children aren't allowed to come and no one's distracting you, and you have created this isolation chamber, but literally walking in the world, eyes open, and creating within yourself that level of awareness that we call meditation, that level of openness and questioning that might be referred to as meditation. And the more we practice doing that in various settings, the more we build the skill for it. So he wrapped that up by saying, you have to do this meditation with your children. If they're not happy, you're not happy. When you make a peaceful step, it's for you and it's also for the children and for the world. Thich Nhat Hanh goes on and writes, I think that our society is a difficult place to live. If we are not careful, we can become uprooted. And once uprooted, we cannot help change society to make it more livable. Meditation is a way of helping us stay in society. This is very important. We have seen people who are alienated from society and cannot be reintegrated into society. And we know that this can happen to us if we are not careful. He writes, I have learned that many Buddhist practitioners in America are young and intellectual and have come to Buddhism not by the door of faith, but by the door of psychology. I know people in the Western world suffer a great deal psychologically, and that is why many have become Buddhists, practicing meditation in order to solve psychological problems. Many are still in society, but some have been uprooted. Having lived for quite some time in this society, I myself feel that I cannot get along with this society very well. There are so many things that make me want to withdraw, to go back to myself. But my practice helps me remain in society because I am aware that if I leave society, I will not be able to help change it. I hope that those who are practicing Buddhism succeed in keeping their feet on earth, staying in society. That is our hope for peace. He says, I wrote a poem over 30 years ago when I was 27 or 28 about a brother who suffered so much he had to drop out of society and go to a meditation center. Since the Buddhist temple is a place of compassion, they welcomed him. When someone is suffering so much, when he or she comes to a meditation center, the first thing is to give some kind of comfort. The people in the temple were compassionate enough to let him come and have a place to cry. How long? How many days? How many years did he need to cry? We don't know. But finally he took refuge in the meditation center, and he did not want to go back to society. He had had enough of it. He thought that he had found some peace, but one day I myself came and burned his meditation center, which was only a small hut, his last shelter. In his understanding, he had nothing else outside of that small cottage. He had nowhere to go because society was not his. He thought he'd come to seek his own emancipation. But in the light of Buddhism, there is no such thing as individual self. As we know, when you go into a Buddhist center, you bring with you all the scars, all the wounds from society, and you bring the whole society as well. In this poem, I am the young man, and I am also the person who came and burned down the cottage. And the poem reads, and the title of it is, I will say I want it all. And the poem proceeds. If you ask how much do I want, I will tell you that I want it all. This morning, you and I, and all men, are flowing into the marvelous stream of oneness. Small pieces of imagination as we are, we have come a long way to find ourselves, and for ourselves, in the dark, the illusion of emancipation. This morning, my brother is back from his long adventure. He kneels before the altar, his eyes full of tears. His soul is longing for a shore to set anchor at. This is a yearning I once had. Let him kneel there and weep. Let him cry his heart out. Let him have his refuge there for 1,000 years, enough to dry all his tears. One night I will come and set fire to his shelter, the small cottage on the hill. My fire will destroy everything and remove his only life raft after a shipwreck. In the utmost anguish of his soul, the shell will break. The light of the burning hut will witness his glorious deliverance. I will wait for him. Beside the burning cottage, tears will run down my cheeks. I will be there to contemplate his new beginning. And as I hold his hands in mine and ask him how much he wants, he will smile and say he wants it all, just as I did. That's the poem. Thich Nhat Hanh writes, to me, a meditation center is where you go to get back to yourself. You get a clearer understanding of reality. You get more strength and understanding and love. You prepare for your re-entry into society. If it's not like that, it's not a real meditation center. As we develop real understanding, we can re-enter society and make a real contribution. So think about it. Practical, practical, practical. This reminds me of the story of Mary Baker Eddy, who was the head of what was called the Christian Science Church. And she had a rule, she had a requirement for anybody that worked for her that they had to meditate. I don't know exactly how much. It might have been a half an hour in the morning, half an hour at night, whatever, an hour a day or whatever. And she had found her meditation work an integral part of her healing, her teaching, her getting inspiration, her clarifying the work that she called the science of the Christ, Christian Science. And it came to a point where they were trying to expand the mother church that they had built. And they had the Christian Science newspaper, one of the most respected newspapers on the planet. And they had all kinds of intelligent people working and projects going. And she had this one businessman who was trying to help her. He was in charge of the expansion of the building of what they called the mother church. And he was getting overwhelmed, and he came to her and he said, I have to resign. I'm not functioning well enough. I'm not able to perform all the duties that are required of me. And she listened to his story, and she was very compassionate, and she listened to him, and she said, I understand, I hear you, you're completely overwhelmed, I get it, and if you really want to resign, I'll accept your resignation. She said, however, you might want to try doubling your meditation time before you give up. And he said to her, I thought you were listening to me. I just finished telling you I don't have enough time in my day to do everything that needs to be done. And and your answer is to give me another hour or two of stuff to do, of meditation where I can't, where I'll be away from the demands of this job and the building and all of the people that have to be coordinated. And she said, I understand. And she was compassionate. And she said, and if you decide to resign, I'll thank you for your service, and that's fine. However, you might want to try doubling your meditation time. And as the story goes, he doubled his meditation time, and he came back to her and said, thank you, I don't need to resign. And he stayed on in the position until the project was completed. And he had more energy and he was more effective and more efficient. And in this completely illogical turn of events, because the logical mind says if you already don't have enough time to do the tasks that you've outlined for yourself in a day, you're really going to be behind the eight ball if you take on another hour or two of commitment. However, it's not a logical thing that happens when we do our own self-care, when we're gentle with ourselves, when we cancel the conscious logical mind and ask to be shown. It doesn't fit logic. The insights, the intuitions, the extra energy, the clarity, these things are not things you can arrive at by following an intellectual process that's been programmed into you. So that's what this poem by Thich Nhat Hanh reminds me of, and his admonition that meditation is only useful if it helps prepare us to re-enter society and bring the gifts of our meditation, the gifts of our love and our joy and our intelligence and creativity back into our interaction with society and our families. So again, please feel free to comment or raise a hand to call in, even if it seems like I'm on a roll or I'm in the middle of reading something. Your input, your questions, your comments enrich this program. And to make a comment, if you're listening at live.needle.com/mindshiftersradio, you would need to download the Needle app. That's Nedl from your app store. It's AI for a radio tuner. And it gives you the option to either comment or call in. And we welcome either one. Thich Nhat Hanh goes on in this book and says, we have many compartments in our lives. When we practice meditation and when we do not practice sitting, these two periods of time are so different from each other. While sitting, we practice intensively, and while we are not sitting, we do not practice intensively. In fact, we practice non-practice intensively. There is a wall which separates the two, practicing and non-practicing. Practicing is only for the practice period, and non-practicing is for the non-practicing period. How can we mix the two together? How can we bring meditation out of the meditation hall and into the kitchen and into the office? How can the sitting influence the non-sitting time? If a doctor gives you an injection, not only your arm, but your whole body benefits from it. If you practice 1 hour of sitting a day, that hour should be for all 24 hours, not just for that 1 hour. One smile, one breath should be for the benefit of the whole day, not just for that moment. We must practice in a way that removes the barrier between practice and non-practice. He's calling us here to open our awareness to the idea that what we achieve in peace, in calm, in a choice of what we focus on when we're sitting in meditation is something we could choose to focus on when we're walking, when we're in the office, when we're interacting with somebody who's upset. We can choose the same kind of focus, the same kind of awareness, the same deep experiential openness that we have when we're sitting in meditation. We can practice doing that when we're interacting with people at the office, when we're driving on a busy road, when we're in the grocery store. To do that, we have to awaken our minds to the fact that what's happening in a seated meditative process is not a miracle. It's not unique to that moment. It's something we can choose. It's a skill we can practice and develop and strengthen within ourselves. He goes on, when we walk in the meditation hall, we make careful steps, very slowly. But when we go to the airport, we are quite another person. We walk very differently, less mindfully. How can we practice at the airport and in the market? That is what we call engaged Buddhism. Engaged Buddhism does not only mean to use Buddhism to solve social and political problems by protesting against the bombs and protesting against social injustice. First of all, we have to bring Buddhism into our daily lives. And Buddhism here, that definition of Buddhism is this person who's awake and aware, this person who is wide open, this person who is learning in the moment by allowing life to teach him or her. That's Buddhism. That's awakened experience in life. He writes, I have a friend who breathes between telephone calls, and it helps her very much. Another friend does walking meditation between business appointments, walking mindfully between buildings in downtown Denver. Passers-by smile at him and his meetings. Even with difficult persons, they often turn out to be very pleasant and very successful. We should be able to bring the peace from the meditation hall into our daily lives. How can we practice to penetrate our feelings, our perceptions during daily life? We don't deal with our perceptions and our feelings only during sitting practice. We have to deal with them all the time. We need to discuss among ourselves how to do it. Do you practice breathing between phone calls? Do you practice smiling while cutting the carrots? Do you practice relaxation after hours of hard work? These questions are very practical. If you know how to apply Buddhism to dinner time, leisure time, sleep time, I think Buddhism will become engaged in your daily life. Then it will have a tremendous effect on social concerns. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha become the matters of everyday life, each minute, each hour of your daily life. And these are not just some description of something far away. This work is calling us to be awake, moment to moment, breath to breath. This is exactly what the Way of Mastery calls us to do in the different exercise it gives us, exercises that it suggests for us. It starts with 5 minutes a day, but then that can grow. It starts with taking another 5 minutes at various points in your day and recognize, I'm only here because of what I've chosen. I'm only here getting out of my car to walk into the grocery store because I've chosen to go to the grocery store. I'm only sitting at my desk at work because I've chosen to come here. I'm only lying in bed after the alarm has gone off and I've hit snooze 5 times because I've chosen to do that. Just being aware at all of these different levels, how the mind wants to tell me I'm a victim, I don't have any choice, I have to go to work, I have to drive on this crazy road, I have to tolerate these abusive people, whatever my mind tells me, and I keep repeating that unless I learn to question it. And that's what the writing by Thich Nhat Hanh is calling us to, and that's what Way of Mastery calls us to with its various exercises. It's what the Course in Miracles it offers to us when it offers a workbook lesson for every day of the year, a way to change what we're doing with our focus of attention and to choose to change that away from the autopilot response to life and to live each moment more fully. So Thich Nhat Hanh's writing goes on. Our mind is like a river with many thoughts and feelings flowing along. From time to time, it is helpful to recite a gatha, a short verse, to remind us what is going on. When we focus our mind on a gatha, Gatha, the gatha is our mind at that moment. The gatha fills our mind for half a second or 10 seconds or 1 minute, and then we may have another gatha a little further downstream. While eating a silent meal, I recite a gatha to myself, and then I eat something. When the plate is empty, I recite another gatha and drink a cup of tea. Suppose there is 1 hour of sitting in meditation, and then 5 hours of non-sitting, followed by 3 more hours of sitting. This is intensive practice. What is the relationship between the practice time and the non-practice time? The practice mind and the non-practice mind, they have a relationship. What is it? Sitting is like the gatha, a long, silent gatha. He puts in parentheses, maybe it's not so silent. Close parentheses. He writes, my main concern is the effect the gatha has on the non-gatha state of mind. An automobile driver needs signs from time to time to show him the way. The sign and the road are one because you don't just use the sign only where it appears, you apply it all along the way until the next sign. There's no difference between the signs and the road. That is what we should do while practicing gathas and sitting. Gathas help us get back to ourselves. As soon as the gatha ends, we continue along the stream. If we do not realize the unity of the gathas and the rest of our life, of the signs on the road and the road, then we would have in ourselves what the French call, well, a French word, cloisons, étanches, I don't know how to pronounce that, but it says, it means we have within ourselves absolute compartmentalization, with no communication whatsoever between the two compartments. Nothing permeable there. It's solid and impenetrable. And we have a separation between the gatha and the non-gatha state of mind as an absolute distinction, like sitting and non-sitting. So the question becomes, how can I allow or help my time of reciting a gatha or a mantra affect the non-recitation moments, the non-gatha moments? How will the sitting permeate the non-sitting hours? We must learn to practice so that one gatha, 1 minute of sitting, will influence the rest of the day. One step made in walking meditation will have an effect on the rest of the day. Every action has an effect. Even if I just clap my hands, the effect is everywhere, even in faraway galaxies. Every sitting, every walking, every smile will have an effect on your own daily life and the life of other people also. And practice must be based on that. So he's calling us to be aware that every choice we make, this is reminds me of the Way of Mastery saying, here's another exercise. Instead of thinking that you're failing, instead of thinking that you haven't reached the Christ mind state constantly, the exercise is notice how often you are succeeding. Notice how often you smile at someone. You say thank you. You genuinely hand them a compliment. You allow them to pull in front of you in the road when you're driving. You wave somebody on if they're, you know, walking at a faltering way, and you say, I'm willing to hold my car here and give you the space to go on. You're succeeding. That same awareness can translate into generalizing the beneficial effects of walking meditation or seated meditation or smiling at someone or holding a loving thought for someone or bringing in the Pierre Pradervan gentle art of blessing and spend a few minutes practicing that every day or every hour of the day. If you haven't had access to that, I encourage you to go to the mindshiftersacademy.org website and find the little icon of a magnifying glass at the bottom of the page. Click on it and type in the word Pierre, the name Pierre, Pierre. When you hit enter, it'll take you to another page where the only thing on the page is a link to the recording I did with Pierre Pradervan on this Mind Shifters radio show a number of years ago. And I'm interviewing him about what at that time was a fairly new book he'd released titled 365 Blessings to Heal Myself and the World. And it was a follow-up to his book, The Gentle Art of Blessing. And I strongly encourage people, probably once or twice a month in my caseload, to at least get exposed to this process, this simple, elegant, powerful process of holding an image in someone at their highest and best and breathing in such a way that you have visualized breathing that loving energy through your heart and extending it out to these other people with the most genuine, heartfelt compassion. And doing that for 2 or 3 minutes a day for anybody that comes to your mind where there's a negative thought involved, whether your thought is about you're sad for what they're going through in their life, or you generate anger and your mind wants to tell you that you're angry because of something they did or didn't do. It's a powerful, powerful process that you can engage in minute by minute or for 1 or 2 minutes every hour. And in many, many situations, we hear about things, we hear about people, we hear about situations which are very intense. Either someone has died or taken their own life, or someone that we know had somebody take their own life, or somebody's being deported, or somebody's having their job pulled away from them because somebody signed something. And it's throwing tremendous stress in these people's lives, stress based on the idea that they have to do something now to adjust to this. And there's nothing I can do physically to change their life circumstances. And yet when I become aware of it, I could practice this gentle art of blessing. I can see them in their wholeness, in their peace, in their loving, compassionate space as their highest and best. I can see an image of this working out for the best in ways that I can't imagine and they can't imagine. And then just send that loving energy to them through my heart space. And whether it's somebody that you know that's struggling with a cancer diagnosis, or someone that they love has lost their life or taken their own life, or someone is struggling to find a job after 4 or 5 years and they're not even getting any responses to their applications, this process benefits you when you think about that, so that you don't just sit there and generate the sadness or the anger or the fear or the hurt. You generate a loving energy field within your own mind-body energy system, within your own heart space, and you instantly get the benefit of changing from the sadness or the fear or the anger or the hurt to the loving energy field and the experience of that loving energy field in your mind and body in the moment. And then you send it out to them. You just visualize, you just pretend, whatever word you want to use, that you have this capacity to originate and extend mind energy, and that you have the choice to extend only your loving thoughts, as the Way of Mastery would call us to. So, again, that interview is available on the mindshiftersacademy.org website. Just find the little magnifying glass and type in the word Pierre, and it comes up one or two clicks away. You're listening to the interview that he was gracious enough to do with us here on Mindshifters Radio. And of course, it's always an option, if you feel so moved, to get the book, The Gentle Art of Blessing, or the book, 365 Blessings to Heal Myself and the World. So I'll leave it there for today. I will leave us a few minutes for transition, and I will remind us all that we've got 2 more days this week. As my grandmother would say, God willing and the creek don't rise. We'll be back again Thursday and Friday this week at 11 o'clock Central Time, and I will remind us all that we come from love. We're made of this stuff that we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. Have a wonderful day.